Hi, and welcome to Caribbean Brilliance, where we recognize Caribbean Americans for their contributions. We give them a platform where they can tell their story in hopes that it will inspire and empower the present and future generation. Today, we have an amazing guest. He looked kind of dapper, he looked handsome, he looked well put together. His name is Adrian Fanus. He's the founder of Adrian Fanus Grooming. Not dogs, people, not dogs. Okay, but hi, Mr. Adrian.
How you doing?
I am wonderfully well. Thank you for coming on the show. I know you're a busy man.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay, I really appreciate you. So you are from the island of?
St. Lucie, St. Lucia.
Okay, song a little more excited.
No, I'm from the Caribbean paradise of St. Lucia, the only island country in the world to be named after a woman. Did you know that?
Really? No. Look, we're learning things today, boy.
Yes.
This man, he don't only look good, he intelligent too. Ooh, let me write down your number right now. Okay. So, where did you grow up in St. Lucia?
I grew up born and raised in the fishing community of Mikud. It's pronounced Mikud.
Well, I'm thinking your island is so small. The whole island so tiny. Everything is fishing. So I don't understand which fishing village.
Well, you have the interior of the island that is more forest and natural reserves and stuff. But yeah, a lot of the island is on the coastline. And St. Lucia, if you don't know, it's a population of 180,000 people and 238 square miles.
So as soon as you leave, the island kind of sink, it tilt, because I mean that one person leaving that's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people have left. It's tilted, and a lot of people come back. So it keeps balancing. Yeah. So it's a beautiful balance, you know, like jigsaw. It's a beautiful scale, you know.
What is St. Lucia known for? Because a lot of times when people think Caribbean, they go with the bigger islands or the more known islands, which is Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe Barbados, right? So that's the three main islands. So if someone had to say, what is St. Lucia known for? Why should I come to St. Lucia?
St. Lucia is, you know, a lot of people don't know. St. Lucia, we speak both French and Creole. We were occupied by the French and the British. So we were fought for 14 times. St. Lucia exchanged ownership 14 times between the French and the British. We gained our independence in February 1979. What is St. Lucia February 22nd, before the Lucians kill me if I don't say the 22nd? Okay. February 22nd, 1979. St. Lucia has, it's beautiful, and they call it Helen of the West Indies. Have you heard of Helen of Troy?
Yes.
She was so beautiful, they fought that big war, the Trojan horse. Right. Well, St. Lucia is called Helen of the West Indies. Really? Because she's that gorgeous. But St. Lucia is known for its, we have the only driving volcano in the world. And it's a land of nature, the ocean, the beaches, the food.
Okay, so it's water and bush. All right. So that's beautiful. So I know you came up to America in your teenage years, but what are some fun memories as a teenager growing up in the island, besides not having shoes and stuff like that?
Besides not having shoes?
Oh, okay, you had shoes. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
She's a mess. Growing up in St. Lucia, it's very community oriented. So just being able to go to my neighbor's house and just walk in, and whatever they're eating, we could share. My friends, spending time, like our house is literally a stone's throw from the ocean. So swimming in the ocean, fishing, just playing, going to the waterfall, and just that camaraderie. I grew up with a group of guys I call my brothers, and although we're not related by blood, but it's just that bond that we had growing up. So growing up when I moved to the States, I've been coming back and forth since I was a child. And people are like, where are you from? And I say, St. Lucia. And they would say, so what part of Jamaica is St. Lucia?
People always get
I would be infuriated. And I just always wanted to, you know, St. Lucia. People got to know about St. Lucia. Okay, per capita, St. Lucia has the most Nobel laureates in the world. For people who've won the Nobel Prize so we have Derek Walcott, who won the Nobel Prize for literature, and we have Sir Arthur Lewis, who won the Nobel Prize for economics.
I didn't know Derek Walcott was from St. Lucia, really.
Where did you think Derek Walcott? Trinidad? You thought he was from Jamaica, Trinidad?
Oh, Trinidad.
No, he's
Oh,
from St. Lucia.
Interesting. Well, no, yeah.
And now we have the great Julian Alfred, who won the gold in 100
Yeah.
meters at the Olympics and silver in the 200. So
Look at you all proud.
I'm very
No,
proud.
that's
Very
awesome.
proud.
And it's nice when people are putting you all on the map, and then when you're all on the map, people actually go and research, and now they want to go to St. Lucia. So with all the St. Lucia talk, when did you decide? When you went home, I want to know, I want to hear how this transpired. I don't know much about your family, but at some point, your parents, your guardian, you said, you know what? I want to be a barber.
Well, actually, I started when I was 15 years old in St. Lucia. So a shop opened next to my house. And I would come from school. At the time, I'm in secondary school, the equivalent of high school. And my teachers convinced me to study business. No, it was sciences, physics, chemistry, biology.
It's always those in the island,
I didn't want it. I wanted to study business. But I remember coming home from school one day, and I saw this structure going up, a barber, and they say it's going to be a barber shop. And I was like, okay. And it was done, and I remember standing outside in the window at the, we call them louvers in the glass.
Yes!
The
Oh
glass,
God, you're bringing back memories,
yeah.
yes.
And I remember looking at people coming to the shop, and the energy was low and just down, melancholy. And when they walked out, they looked like they had a new lease on life, happy, vibrant, like ready to take on the world. I looked at the barber as having a superpower. You know, like he's a superhero doing that for people. And something clicked, and I wanted to do that for people. Not just the haircuts, but just to make them feel good about themselves. So I befriended a barber. His name's Ryan Evans from our community. And every day when I came from school, I would give him my lunch, unbeknownst to him. I'd say, hey, we have extra food here, you know? You want some? But I would be giving him my lunch. And I befriended him. I gained his confidence. And I said, hey, let me start sweeping the shop for you. And he was like, okay. And then I'd like, just leave the kids with me at night so you don't have to do it in the morning. So he trusted me. And as soon as he would leave, walk down the hill, I would call all my friends and start messing up their heads, you know, practicing.
Really?
And he knew I was doing that because he would see the hairlines crooked and everything terrible. But he took a liking to me, you know, and we formed a friendship. And I started by cleaning the shop and lining him up. And he just, under his tutelage and stuff, that was my apprenticeship.
Wow. So did you actually go to school at some point?
For barbering?
Yeah.
I never went to school.
You never
So I
went to
apprenticed under him for a few years. And then he moved to St. Croix. And by that time, he had left the shop in my care. You know, so I was paying the rent and stuff.
How old were you when he left?
17,
That's
16,
what I'm
16,
thinking.
17. And I remember when he came back, it was like a few months later, I'd built a little clientele. And that Christmas, he was very busy. And the people still, some people, they did not trust me to cut his hair. I had this aha moment where I was in the shop that Christmas Eve, and there must have been like 15, 20 people outside the shop. And they all wanted him. And he was at capacity. And this guy, Francois, I remember, a barber, but he, from Micoud, but he lived in the Virgin Islands. And he said, yo, man, you need help? And he came in there and he just knocked out a few haircuts. And I was so hurt. Because I felt like this guy came on my turf in my house and disrespected me. You know, I should be the one doing that. And I said, another Christmas will not go by and this happened. So by the time next Christmas came, I was good enough where I was able to do that. Yeah. My mom, I love my mom. And like most Caribbean parents, she wanted me to be a teacher, policeman, a doctor, lawyer.
Engineer.
And when I told her this is what I want to pursue, she was not fond of it because at the time, barbers were seen as miscreants, guys who went to jail.
Yeah, that's like the last, you ain't got nothing else.
You have nothing else. You're doing this as a last resort. But I knew that this was special. You know, not only the transformation part of the physical transformation, but the spiritual transformation in that people allow themselves to get naked, vulnerable, human. You know, they shed that mask when they sat in the chair.
But so you coming up to America from St. Lucia, right? This is a question I wanted. What was your expectation versus what the reality was when you came here?
Well, I've been coming back and forth to the States ever since I was a child.
Okay.
So I was already used to New York, you know, 691 Ocean Avenue. I live there. I've been in New York since I was a child, back and
Wow,
forth.
okay.
I would come on vacation. I
So
never
it was a
wanted.
much more easy.
No, I never
Okay.
wanted to stay. But when I moved back at 18, when I asked my mom to pay my fare for me, and it was April 1st when I came, 1999, $200 in my pocket, and a dream. That's all the money I saved.
Yeah.
You know, and I came on. This guy named Wata and Staney, they came to meet me, and they took me to the beauty supply store and buy my clippers, helped me choose them, and I had $25 left in my pocket. I was scared shitless. I was terrified.
Yeah.
You know, Chico Ryan, he was working at a shop on Northern Avenue, so he had connected me with the owner. So I got here April 1st. I left St. Lucia April 1st. I got here April 2nd, and I just felt like this was a big April Fool's joke I was playing on myself, because I saw all my friends went to A-level, which is the equivalent of college,
Yeah.
and it's like, yo, you gonna go to America and be a barber? Like, you wasting, you know, because you had the naysayers,
Yeah.
you know, and then my mom is
Starts-
just
yeah.
like, yeah, you start doubting. But I pursued it. I stayed with my sister, and I worked at the shop VIP on Northern Avenue.
Yeah.
That first week,
Yeah.
I made $250.
Oh.
So my mindset has always been, I made $50 more than I came with. So everything else in my life has just been extra.
Okay.
That's why for me, I'm at a place in my life where if I lose everything, I made $50 more than I came with.
Wow.
So everything else has just been extra.
So, so people are hearing the story. You're in St. Lucia, decide, barbering, this is what I want to do. I'm going to
Yeah.
come to America, right? How do you go from doing barbering to what you have now?
You know, I started cutting hair, like when I worked at the shop, I would practice on my friends at school, doing the girls' eyebrows with the razor. And for me, even when we had to do presentations in front of school for career day, what you want to do, and when I went up there with my razor and comb and say, I'm going to do barbering, I remember my teachers doubting and saying there's no career, there's no pathway for success in that.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time.
Wow.
It's always been proving people wrong. But also, I love human beings. I love people. So for me, when I left St. Lucia, I came to America, I just saw that what shops were. It was, again, people, their mindset was, you're black, you're in a barber shop, the loud music,
Yeah.
the you just walk in, the you know, the unprofessionalism a lot of times, and the way you dress, the way you present yourself. I always wanted more. And I'm like, hey, there's a market that's not being capitalized on.
Okay.
You know, and then I met so many amazing people, men and women in so many different career paths, that I'm like, hey, I believe that this profession could be on the same level as a lawyer, a banker, investment, a pilot, a politician, if you do right by it.
Okay.
You know, if you take care of it, it's gonna take care of you.
So I want to cut him off because he looked like he's taking over my show a little, right? He think his conversation with Adrian Fanus or whatever. So this is what I want to do in this moment.
Okay.
I want to show the people some of the things that your creative side, some of the hairs you have transformed, the people, the grooming that you typically do. So I want to show this video to let people get a taste of what Adrian Fanus is all about. Wow. Now that was amazing. But I must say, the number one thing I saw, there was a lot of women in those videos.
Yeah.
So I want, before we even go back to when you started your whole grooming, being a master barber, how come there's so many women? And did you niche down to mostly women, or how does that? Tell the people. Because all the ladies are like, I got to go there.
Well, there's been an influx of women wanting to get their hair cut, and again, in an environment that is professional, an environment that is safe, an environment that is welcoming, an environment that they could feel seen, heard, and be comfortable.
I understand what you're saying. So you found that a lot of women wanted to come to you partly because of the environment?
Yes, and also a lot of women just started embracing more and more their natural hair. So a lot of women did the big shops, especially right before the pandemic, 2018. A lot of women wanted to try shorter haircuts, and they're like, "Hey, I've been wearing texturizers and weaves and braids for so long. I wanna try this, you know." But they don't want to look. A lot of women came in and say, "I don't want to look
like a man.
I don't want to look handsome.
Right.
I don't want to look masculine."
Yeah.
So being able to give women haircuts that compliment them, that could make them feel their beautiful self, and that like, wow, I did not make the wrong decision cutting my hair off. You know, I kind of like just really perfected that. So more and more women my business has been pretty much word of mouth, no advertisement.
Wow.
So people just talked and told their friends.
That's amazing. That's a big deal.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to go back to you started in 2009, right?
Opened the salon,
Yeah,
the first
the salon.
salon opened in 2009.
So when you people hear you're a barber, you're going to have a grooming barbershop, first thing is, I got to find the money. I got to find the support. Did you have any of those things, or how did you?
Yeah, I had a great support system in my friends, in my family, you know, my people who just really rallied behind me. As far as I'm blessed in that I opened the business with no loans. You know, I've never taken a loan.
So this is money saved up, friends believed in you?
Yeah, well, it's money that's saved up. It's money that was saved up. And I remember I saved money up for a while. And then a year before I opened the shop, I spent everything. I bought a new car. I went on a shopping spree. I just went crazy. And then I just buckled down and just saved every penny for a year straight. And it came through. It came true, the dream, you know, it realized. But also, it was scary because 2009, we had the financial crash, right? And then the shop I opened, there was no, it's not a storefront. It's a brownstone. We were on the third level of a brownstone.
You had to go upstairs to find it.
And then we opened right next to Lafayette Gardens, which is like the projects. And people were like, yo, in the middle of a financial crash, there's nobody who could see you, who knows that you're there. How will people find you? And this is not the best neighborhood. And then you double the price of what the haircuts were.
When I could get for $25 down the road.
Yeah, so it was all that, but we provided an experience. And what we realized is that a lot of people just felt like they just put up with the barbershop environment, but they wanted an alternative, and an alternative did not exist. So a place where a man could bring his wife or bring his kids and just have a glass of wine, champagne, a rum punch.
After you list all those things, how much is this haircut? I need an idea.
In 2009, the haircuts were started at 40.
Okay, so now that we have expanded, so where are you located right now?
We're located in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn.
And when did you move there? What year?
In 2000, again.
During that pandemic?
No. Actually, 2 days after we moved in, the pandemic happened.
So you just like to make things hard so you could push through to be you're like, yes, I did it, I made it.
No, that's how it happened. 2 days after we opened, the pandemic happened, so we were shut down for 3 months. And right before we opened, the landlord sued us for the back rent. We just opened. So now we find ourselves like $40,000.
But how, in the midst of that, how do you keep yourself optimistic?
I have an irrational sense of confidence. I told you that. So that has not changed, but just faith, unwavering faith. And again, remember I told you I moved to this country with $250 in my pocket. The first week, I made $50. That's $50 more than I came with. So for me, my mindset has always been and continue to be Everything else is extra.
Wow, that should be like a quote right there. I saw this on the website. I wanted to read this. The Adrian Fanus grooming experience. Mr. Fanus analyzes each client's facial structure and personalizes to tailor a unique haircut for them. How long does that take, and what does that look like?
It doesn't take long at all. It's from the time the client walks in, I'm already analyzing.
Okay, so you're analyzing me right now?
Oh, I've analyzed you, yeah.
Oh, is that
I've
good or
analyzed
bad?
the shape of the head, their personality,
Wow.
their style, their career, what they do for their lifestyle. Ask certain questions. What do you do for fun outside of work? And once people give you that information, it's kind of like you go to a doctor, right?
Yeah.
And you tell the doctor you're not feeling well. They will take your vitals, examine your ears, nose, and throat,
Yeah.
right? Take your blood pressure, your temperature. Then they might check your weight, your pulse.
So you're like a doctor for hair?
Yeah, most definitely.
Interesting.
And then they take your urine samples, blood samples, and they send it for your labs and come back, and then they
All of that.
X-rays or MRIs.
People could come and leave without a kidney? But okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the doctor do their due diligence. Oftentimes when people get a haircut, it's a one size fit all. Oh, I want a one with the grain or 1.5 and a fade or whatever, but that haircut needs to be tailored to suit your facial structure. Because believe it or not, everybody's hair does not grow the same. Some people's hair might grow in this way and across this way and down this way and that way. So if you're just cutting everybody's hair the same way, it may work for some, but not for others. For
No, it's true,
example,
because I've been there, because people say no one could really mess my hair up, and I've had hair that I come out and I look like a total man, right? And it's like, how hard could that be?
did you say something to the groomer, the barber about?
I just never come back.
You just never come
went
back?
Yeah. But people just think because your hair is so short, it can't
No,
be
actually,
that
it's
hard.
actually more difficult to cut the hair when it's short. And oftentimes, what needs to be taken into consideration again is how often do you get your hair cut. So looking at your hair, I could tell you get your hair maybe once a week to every 2 weeks, based upon the way your hair is growing, the haircut you have. So the hair itself tells a story. And if you pay attention, then you could just a lot of information that is valuable. So for example, me looking at your hair, right? The sides of your hair grows a lot. It tends to grow quicker or thicker than the top. So what I would do, I would fade your sides a little lower than the top. It wouldn't be noticeable, but in terms of the way it grows back, it's gonna grow back more evenly.
Wow, and you said that, oh my God, how you make hair songs so sexy, by the way?
No, but
I'm listening, I'm like, oh my God, really? Okay, cut my
But
hair.
it's just about paying attention,
Yeah.
It's paying attention and also working in the client's best interest. Because I could give you a haircut and within 2 days, you need another haircut.
Yeah.
But I want to give you a haircut that lasts.
Wow.
And
And that will bring people trust you, and they'll come back even more. I just wanted to touch on this a little because I realize you just keep going to the next level. So you seem to do a lot of things. So you also have a skincare line?
A skincare line, a hair care line, a beard care line.
That's amazing. Is that something you were looking into? Because you're like, I want to keep expanding. Because some people are like, okay, I'm a barber, I'll keep the chair. Some people say I'll have a storefront and end, but you just keep building.
It's always been a dream to have a hair care line and a beard care line, but it's been a dream to be able to provide people with, because growing up, you use Murray's, you use Dax,
Yeah.
you use
Dax, I thought that was the best thing ever.
yeah, you use the pink oil moisturizer. Then you use stuff like the coconut oil, and it's like every Caribbean person.
Why are you going through my idea? That's everybody have that.
Every Caribbean person use Jergens. Remember Razak? You remember the Razak?
I don't know what you're talking
that
about,
would
sir.
smell so
You disrespectful.
Right? No. But it's being able to give people products that are not only ethical in terms of how it's sourced, but just great for the skin and doing the due diligence, because we've looked at all the big brands providing those products for years and we've just accepted them.
Yeah, true.
But a lot of the raw materials comes from countries like St. Lucia, like Jamaica, like Trinidad, like Africa. We share butter and murra butter, and so it's being able to create employment also for people like us, and stop allowing other people to sell us the products that we naturally provide.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Isn't that that's next level thinking, because I
So
don't
for
think
me-
people think like that.
For me, it's what I do is great, but it's not sustainable. I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
you know, and
And you look like 35.
you know, sometimes on a busy day, right, back in the day, I would cut at my most like 50 people a day, right? But that's not sustainable to do that for 70, 80, 90
Right.
years. And you've looked at a lot of people who've come before us. Like, what happens after a while? Most barbers retire or they go work for the city, work for MTA, and work for a lot of stuff like that. And they say, I can't sustain this profession
Right.
doing it till I'm 60, 70. What's the backup plan? But with products, you could sell a lot more products than you could perform a service. But also, it's just creating legacy in terms of I want to leave something behind, not only for me, but for the next generation of men and women coming behind that. This is the pathway that you could take. So whereas my profession was seen as a profession for criminals, now you guys could grow up and just become entrepreneurs and just globally, you know, and impact the world like a Rihanna does and the other brands like a LVMH and, you know, just create pathways that people could see that I want to be. Look at your nails; they're done perfectly, right? The white with the. But I could become a nail tech. I could become a esthetician. I could become a masseuse. I could become a hairstylist. I could, and I do not have to just resign myself to doing this at a base level. I could take it to a place where I could create opportunities and etch my name in the history books that she came, she saw, she conquered.
Beautiful. Well, he came, he showed, he conquered. With that said, I wanted to present you with this amazing token from Caribbean Brilliance. Let me just read. What are you snatching my cup for? Let me read what it says. Celebrating Caribbean Brilliance. Thank you for the impact you make every day with appreciation from Miss Francois.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And there's a Lucian flag on there, right?
Of course. I actually checked for it too, thing, right? It's the same, it's right there.
Thank you so
I
much.
made sure to try to fit all the Caribbeans as much as possible. But what I wanted to ask you, right? Like all the things you have accomplished thus far, what is next for you?
Right now, we're transforming one of the classrooms in my alma mater to a barbershop so I could teach the kids my craft for free, men and women.
I have so much respect for you in this moment. Maybe I didn't have much before, but now I have it now.
I appreciate it.
And with that said, tell people where they could look you up, where they can find the shop, or what you call it?
So the grooming salon.
The
so we're
grooming
at
salon. Go
651 Bushwick Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're the website is afgrooming.com. They could find us there. We appointment only, so they don't have to wait. They could book it online. Everything is seamless. And the skincare line is adrianfanus.com.
Okay. And I want to make sure people understand you don't do this by yourself because you have other barbers that work with you.
Yeah, we have other groomers. We have a colorist. And right now we're adding a lot more people to the team.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, send in your resumes. afgrooming.com/apply. But yeah, send in your resumes.
Do you have anything in particular that you look for when you're hiring someone?
People who are good people, because you could train somebody the skill sets. Yes, people who are skillful, but people at their core who care about people and who are good people.
Awesome. That's beautiful.
Thank you
so so much for being on the show.
Pleasure.
This was really awesome.
I appreciate it.
As always, you could find me on all social media, all the relevant ones anyway. And with that says, continue to inspire and empower other people until we lime again.